This is Jewish Spotlight, a weekly television program presented by Chabad Lubavitch of Long Island, featuring various aspects of modern Jewish life and Jewish culture. Now, here is your host, Rabbi Tuvia Teldin.
Shalom. With the high holiday season coming very quickly upon us, all of us out there are looking very carefully to find out how we can better prepare for this coming year in a meaningful way, and an exciting way, and in a spiritual way. And of course, attending high holiday services is a wonderful way to start off the year because it gives us that sense of the majesty of God. It gives us that sense of inspiration, of feeling closer to our Creator. And one person that we rely upon greatly when we go to the synagogue, besides the rabbi, of course. I mean, I have to put in a plug for the rabbis. But besides the rabbis is the chazan, the cantor. The cantor inspires us. The cantor's job is to really pour his heart out to God and act as our representative, bringing our tefillot and inspiring us to want to make our tefillot, our prayers, very intense towards God. So the Jewish Spotlight, we're going to bring you now and introduce you to one of the world-renowned cantors, a person who has traveled the whole world inspiring Jews to pray and to put meaning into their prayer and to feel that they're actually talking to God. And it's truly an honor and a pleasure to have with us as our guest for the Jewish Spotlight, Cantor Joseph Malavoni. Cantor Malavoni, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm looking forward to a very exciting half hour, and we're going to discuss many things, but I want to start off, of course, find out a little bit about yourself in terms of your background. You came, of course, from Israel. You went first, I understand, to South Africa and then to England with different positions as a cantor, and then came to America back in 1973. And, of course, you were the chazan for the very distinguished and very prestigious Fifth Avenue Synagogue in Manhattan, which is a well-known synagogue, and it's truly a very important role to be the cantor at that synagogue. Great people from all over the world come to visit this synagogue. How do you feel being the chazan for such a wonderful synagogue?
Very simple. When I pray to God. And as far as the people are concerned, they are just Jews who come to pray.
All right. Sounds fair enough. Because in front of God, everybody's equal. Right. Now, what is the role of a chazan? Tell me a little bit about how Judaism looks at your position.
Look, the chazan is really not a performer. The chazan is a shliach tzibur. He's a messenger of the congregation.
Okay.
And as such, he has to sing the prayers according to certain music modes which we call nusach. The musical modes, each prayer has its own musical mode. The chazan with his voice, with his musicality, is allowed to elaborate, to improvise, and then to sing nigunim, to sing melodies.
Right. So you studied for many years to be able to adapt to those tunes and understand the history behind each individual tune. Because some of these tunes go back thousands of years.
Thousands of years. We call them Sinai. They come from Sinai. They were developed, they were changed a little bit, they were under various influences.
Right.
But it goes back for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Interesting.
And so, as a kid, I was brought up and taught in Tel Aviv by my Rebbe, Shlomo Ravitz, who was a great chazan in Russia, the Nusach HaTfilah and singing in the choir and conducting the choir and all these things.
Interesting. Now, you also traveled the world, I understand, in order to be able to perform, not perform, that's the wrong word.
Right.
To share.
You can say perform, because I give concerts.
Oh, you do give concerts.
So, of course, I give a lot of concerts, and you can call it a performance. But the idea of the concert is not just to perform the music, but to get the people to come out from the concert with inspirations and with love of God.
Interesting. You told me also beforehand that the Lubavitcher Rebbe himself had given you instructions concerning that.
Yeah.
Can you share that with us?
The Rebbe, yes. The Rebbe, I had yichidus with him. I had a private audience with the Rebbe. And he quoted to me the rabbinic saying of Kabez Hashem mehoncha al tikra mehoncha ela migroncha, which means honor God with all your possessions. Don't call possessions, but call your throat in Hebrew.
Honor God with your throat.
And the Rebbe says, just go around and sing and pray for people, and God will bless you, and thank God.
Well, listen, it's definitely a gift, and I can tell you one thing. I am not competition for you.
It's all right. I can sustain competition. I have
no
no
aspirations
problem.
to be a
I have no
cantor.
problem with competitions. I welcome it, and it's fine.
Very good. But before we get started, though, or as we continue, I want first to be able to show our audience a very beautiful tape that I've seen of some of your performance in the Krakow Synagogue. Can you tell us about that particular performance
Yes,
before we put it up on the air?
Of course. This was a concert at the synagogue, Temple Synagogue, as it's called, in Krakow. And it was televised live on Polish television.
Live?
Yes, and
Incredible.
the choir, yes, absolutely. The only time in the world that you have a live cantorial concert broadcast. The choir is our choir from Moscow. This is the Jewish choir. I have in Moscow a cantorial school, which I've established
Really?
through the help of the Joint, the JDC.
Yes.
And this choir is today affiliated also with Chabad, with Lubavitch in Moscow. The choir consists of about 20 guys, and the piece that you will hear, or the audience will hear, is a prayer for the high holiday that, in fact, the congregation says on behalf of the cantor. In other
Really?
words, the congregation asks God to grant the health and to make sure that the mouth of the cantor should express those beautiful prayers.
Interesting.
This is really the prayer. It is right in the middle of the Musaf, of the additional service. Hayeh im fifios, God, please be with the mouth of the messengers of your
Beautiful.
congregation.
Okay, I want to take a look at it. Let's cut into that, see if we can take a look and see the cantor in Moscow, or in
Poland.
Poland.
I would say at least 1,000 people. And what pleases me a lot is not only, of course, all the Jews from Krakow were there, but many, many non-Jews, Gentiles, who come by the masses to hear beautiful Jewish music.
I'm sure it must be very inspiring for you also to find yourself in that type of situation.
Yes, it is.
Let's listen. Into training this choir?
Well, the choir is we started in 1990 when we opened the Academy of Jewish Music in Moscow. And the choir has its own conductor now. I provide them with the music. Beautiful. And they rehearsed 3 times a week. This is probably one of the best Jewish choirs in the world. Highly professional.
Very interesting. That's
Thank
beautiful.
You. Thank
Congratulations.
You. Thank you.
So I'm sure there must be a very inspiring part of your work to be able to travel and to really lift the hearts of Jewish people and lift them to God. It's a very great zchut, a great merit.
You know, Rabbi, I've traveled, especially since Eastern Europe opened up. I've been all over Eastern Europe. You name the country and I've been there. Singing, davening, conducting services, just to try to inspire the people. You see, they don't understand the Hebrew there. To them, it's something which they were not brought up.
Right.
But the Jewish heart is there. The Jewish heart is there. It's pumping.
And you can
it's
see
working.
it. Right. You can
And
see
it's
it
wonderful whether it is in the Tchaikovsky Hall or in the Bolshoi Hall in Moscow or in the Philharmonic Hall in Warsaw or in Prague in the biggest hall or in the Royal Castle. Mm-hmm. there is something that brings us Jews together. And also what I like, if I may say in one
Please,
sentence, it creates an outstanding goodwill between us and non-Jews too.
Interesting.
And so it helps.
Well, music has that power. It brings
That's right.
people together
and
very
it helps
strongly.
create human rights, understanding, tolerance, all through this beautiful
Interesting.
music.
That's great. That's really,
Yes.
really very special. Now, let's get back to Rosh Hashanah, because
Yes.
the day is coming. What would you like people coming to synagogue, listening to you in the synagogue, what would you like them to be thinking? What are you trying to put into their minds, into their hearts during the time that you yourself are praying to God?
I would like the people to feel that this is a day of awe. This is a day of Kedusha, of sanctity. This is a day of judgment. This is also the day when the world was created. So the philosophical notions of high holidays is varied. I want people to sit in the synagogue and to have goose pimples all the time, and doing it through different styles of the music, based, as I said before, on the Nusach, but on different styles. For example, my Zayde, my late mother came from Siget, from Marmorish Siget. My Zayde sang this beautiful prayer, which we call Unesane Tokef, Kedusha Sayom.
Sure, that's one of the most famous
The
prayers.
holiness of the day, the holiness of the day. Ki hu nora ve'ayom, because this day is strong, it's powerful. And I sing it in shul with a lot of feeling, with a krechts, as we call it. For example, let me illustrate it for you.
Please.
Unesane toikef, oy, 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 kedushas hayoim, ki onoi roy, oy, 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 ve'ayoim, oy, voy sinasei, Emalechusecho, oy, 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 oy. And then I go on. People already get, I hope, some
Into the
goosebumps.
spirit.
And then there is a beautiful melody where I try to get them to sing with me. V'chol boi oilam yaverun elefonecha ki b'nei amarim kevakoras roye v'deroi ma v'yetzoinoi tachas shivto, and so on and so forth. And everybody is standing. The ark is open. It is a moment of drama. And that's what I'm trying to create on Rosh Hashana, so that the people would want not to come only for 3 days, but come throughout the year.
That's the challenge.
That's right.
Now, when you say that the day is a day of awe, a person is, let's say, a typical person watching this show.
Yes.
Maybe they do go for Rosh Hashanah services, maybe they don't go for Rosh Hashanah services. They're sitting in their seat. They have a couple of distractions here and there. What should they be focusing on in terms of it being a day of holiness? What kind of thoughts do you want them to have? What prayers would you like them to concentrate on? When they see so much mention of God being a king, what should they be thinking about, for instance?
Well, you know, as I mentioned before, there are many themes that make the Rosh Hashanah
Right.
service. You know, we have, I want them to think that faith in God is something important.
So this is a day they can reflect on where
I
is
want
their
them to
faith.
sit in the synagogue to relax,
Okay.
and their mind to have only on the prayer. And so, in order to do that, as I mentioned before, it's the singing, explanations of the prayers, which a rabbi does. And if he explains a certain prayer, for example, we have the section, Malchuyos Zichronos Shofros. One, we ask God to become the king of the universe. The other one, we remember the history of the Jewish people. And then Malchuyos, Zichronos, Shofros. We remember the time when the Torah was given to us.
Right.
And so there are quotations from the Torah and from other books of the Bible. So you become suddenly versed with the Bible. You become versed with Jewish history. You become versed with Jewish philosophy. You become versed with Jewish spirituality. And all these things together, I have to do within 2.5 hours
So
of
what
the
you're saying
prayer.
really is if a person focuses on the machzor is the word, of course, for the siddur that we use on Rosh Hashana and as well as Yom Kippur.
Correct.
And they focus on those words themselves, they will find tremendous inspiration just in the words. It's a matter of really looking at it and not being distracted and trying to dig in. Why did the sages make this part of the prayer book? What are we supposed to be getting out of this?
That's right. And what really happens is that they look at the words, but through the singing, I call to their attention certain themes within the text. You cannot focus on everything.
Right, of course.
So one day I sing this. On another day, I sing something else. For example, there is the Eastern European Jews are called the Jews with more feelings, with more emotion. And the chazones, the cantorial music, is called chazones haregesh, the cantorial music of the feelings, of the emotion.
Right.
Westernized Jews, for example, the Jews from Germany, from Austria, Holland, that chazanut hayofi, haestetika, this is the aesthetic, this refined one.
Right, very different
now,
approach.
as I mentioned to you before, there is we pray for the world. We pray for the world. I sang recently at the United Nations at the World Conference of Religious Leaders of all religions.
Really?
And it was before Rosh Hashana.
That must have been a great experience.
Tremendous experience. I had the representatives of Dalai Lama and Muslim mullahs and Christians and of course Rabbonim and so I figured, what shall I sing? And I sang the prayer that is sung in Germany by German Jews, which I sing in my shul and I've recorded. They saw you kol leovdecha. We ask that the whole world should come to serve God.
Interesting, because of course Rosh Hashana, as you mentioned earlier, is the day of the creation of the whole world.
Precisely.
So we're praying for the whole world. We're not just praying for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And in fact, I think we have a copy of that tape.
Yes,
no?
there is a tape from a concert
Good. Maybe we can,
with the Warsaw Philharmonic Orchestra.
Good.
Where
I would like to
this
see
piece.
that. I'd like to see that.
That
Maybe
should
we
be
can cut
nice.
into that tape. We can take a look and see, because that's a very important part of
They
the
saw
theme
you, yes.
of Rosh Hashana. Let's look. Okay, I see you're preparing. How many people were at this concert?
I would say in this concert also at least 1,000 people. What's interesting, this was in the city of Częstochowa, and in that city, the concert hall where I sang stands on the spot where the great synagogue was before the war, which was destroyed by the Germans. And so it's very, very meaningful to sing such tefillas, such prayers like this, and it's a lot of feelings.
That's beautiful. Well, that's very exciting, and I'm sure you've done this so often. Do you ever get tired of it?
No. As a matter of fact, sometimes I have a feeling that I haven't done enough. And the more,
Well,
the
from what you
better.
tell me, the Rebbe told you to continue to go around and sing.
And I
wherever
tell
go.
you, I always say like this: God gave me a voice.
That's
Gave me that
exactly
voice.
right.
I have to serve God with this voice. Yes, I sing some secular music too, but mostly religious music. And so I serve him through the synagogue services, through guest services in synagogues, through the concerts of Jewish music. And whether it is a service or whether it's a concert, it's serving the Almighty.
Interesting.
And I try to give of myself as much as I can.
Cantor, let me ask you a question. I was
Yes.
doing some research about you before you came on the
Yes.
show, and I know that you've performed before royalty, you've performed before presidents and vice presidents.
Yes.
You've traveled the world. You have a music school named after you at the Yeshiva University.
Well, not exactly. It's called the Belz School of Jewish Music, and I'm a distinguished professor.
Okay, you're a
and there
distinguished-
is
with a chair
in my name.
Right. Okay, fine. So,
And of course, I'm the cantor of the Fifth Avenue Synagogue.
Right. So tell me, in your career, what would you look at as being perhaps the most exciting experience, the pinnacle of your career, something that just touched you in such a way? Was it touching a child's heart? Was it a grand audience that you had? Was it an insight into the music that you had? What was it that really means something to you?
The one that caused me to cry and stands out in my entire career
Yes.
is my first encounter with Russian Jews in Moscow. My first visit to Moscow was in 1989 as a guest of the Joint. And I gave big concerts in a concert hall, but that Shabbat in the Moscow synagogue, seeing those faces which I've seen in pictures years before when I was a little boy, and they were still alive there, I recognized them. I opened my mouth on Friday night at the synagogue, and immediately I broke down.
Really?
I cried bitterly, and they understood why, at least the rabbis, and I honestly broke down. And then I collected myself, of course, and I continued. The first encounter Friday night to a packed synagogue, the Moscow in Arkhipova Street. This is something that I will never forget in my life.
Amazing.
Yes, I've sung for this queen and for that king and for prime ministers, and many of them are my friends and presidents. It's wonderful because they're becoming friends of the Jews through the music. But the first encounter in Moscow, that is number one.
Because that touched you in a place in your heart that
Very
nobody
much.
could reach to.
All my life I wanted to go there.
Really?
I wanted to sing, I wanted to pray for them. I know that they were deprived for so many years. And I was the first cantor since before the revolution,
Incredible.
coming from the West, to sing and to conduct Shabbat services at the synagogue. What shall I tell you?
That's wonderful. Now, getting back to Rosh Hashana, let's pick another prayer in the Machzor, which you feel also expresses an important theme that you try to get across in your prayers at the Fifth Avenue Synagogue. Can you share with us some insights and perhaps a little rendition of something that you think could communicate the themes of Rosh Hashana?
There is a beautiful melody that is sung again, it was composed by Louis Lewandowski in Germany, as part of Zichronot, where we ask God to remember. Look at our prayers. Look how intelligent and clever the prayers are. First of all, we crown God as the King of the universe. So to speak, we set him on his throne.
Now, what does that mean, that we crown God? Why does he need our crown?
He needs that, because we have to accept the fact that
Okay.
he is the King of the universe.
Right.
And so God says to us, you really want me to be the king of the universe? Say a prayer for that. Make me become the king. And so by doing that, you will get closer to me. And the notion and the idea of dveikut, of cleaving to God, is by crowning him as God. But that's not enough. Then comes Zichronot. What does it mean, Zichronot? We ask God, okay, now you're the king, now you are the boss, so to speak.
Right.
Remember us, for God's sake. You are going to decide our fate for the next year. So please remember us, what we have done. We did, yes, maybe we did bad things, but we did a lot of good things too. God, Zochreinu, remember us. So there is a tefillah, there is a prayer at the conclusion of this section. Just before the conclusion, ועל ידי עבדיך הנביאים כוסו ולאמור. And then comes a beautiful melody. זכרתי לך חסד נעורייך אהבת כלולותייך. It's from the prophet Jeremiah. I remember you from your youth, says God. Yes, I will remember you. And then we conclude with a prayer, Zochreinu b'zikaron tov, God, remember us with good memories. Zochreinu b'zikaron tov lefonecha, forgedeinu b'fekudas Yeshua v'rachamim. So we sing a beautiful melody, and then we pour our neshama, our heart to God.
Well, that's beautiful. Cantor, I want to thank you very, very much for being with us and for illuminating the meaning of the prayers.
It's my pleasure.
I also want to make sure that our audience is aware of the fact that the Cantor does have some wonderful videos that are from his concerts, which are available for anybody should they want to. And perhaps they could call the Fifth Avenue Synagogue.
No, let them go to the shops.
Oh, go to the shops? Okay, it's in the shops. And of course also we have CDs as well, which will be able to share a little bit more of the beauty of your voice and the inspiration of your voice. I want to thank you very much, and I just want to say also that I think you mentioned a very important point, which is an important message for everybody in our audience.
Yes.
That you were given a gift. God gave you a gift, and your decision was to appreciate that gift, to develop it, and I'm sure it was a lot of hard work to be able to get it to the fine-tuning where it is today, and to be able to share it with others. And I think that's something that all of us can really learn from, because all of us have some type of gift. It might not be being able to sing. I can tell you that for sure. It's not my gift.
But you speak well.
Well, we all have our gifts. And the important thing that God wants from us is to develop that gift and to be able to really share it then with others, to be able to give of ourselves to others, because that's the greatest gift of all that we can give and show appreciation to God for the gifts that He's given us. And I must say that you've done a wonderful job using out the gift that you received. I only wish you good health and success and many, many happy years with your family, and continue working on lifting up the souls of the Jewish people wherever you might meet them.
Thank you very much, and may I wish all the people a good and happy, healthy
Thank you
New
very
Year.
much. I'd like to take that opportunity for everybody in our audience to wish them also a healthy, happy New Year. It should be sealed for a good year. It should be a year of peace, year of happiness and health and sustenance for everybody in our audience, and only good things to look forward to for many, many years to come. And thank you very much, Cantor, for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Simchu, 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 simchu,